CBS News coverage of Campaign 88 continues. Tonight, from Atlanta, Georgia, the opening session of the Democratic National Convention. This portion is sponsored by General Motors, the mark of excellence. From CBS News Convention headquarters inside the Omni Arena, here is Dan Rather.
Good evening. Showtime. Opening night of the Democratic National Convention here in enthusiastic Atlanta's Omni Arena. Welcome to CBS News coverage of this once every 4 years showcase for a free people in the democratic process, and a showcase for the political parties to perform their duties, define themselves, nominate their presidential ticket, and ask for your support. But beyond what they want you to see, we're here to report to you on the behind-the-scenes fencing and the fence mending between the Dukakis, Benson, and Jackson camps, and to try to give you a close-up look at Michael Dukakis, who he is, what he stands for. Michael Dukakis, the candidate who himself acknowledged to us in an interview last week, "I'm someone who isn't very well known." He might have added, yet. Now, here's what we think we do know at this hour. The Jackson and Dukakis camps have reportedly worked out all of their party platform disagreements, save 3. On 2 Jackson planks about taxing the rich more and about a pledge that the United States would never make first use of nuclear weapons, the issues the present plan calls for will be debated and voted on. On the 3rd, a Palestinian homeland, there will be debate but no vote. That at least is the current plan as we understand it. So Michael Dukakis appears to have gotten what he wanted and needed for this convention opener. A show of unity, real unity with Jesse Jackson. Still, there is the possibility of a pitfall. How will a Dukakis, Benson, Jackson campaign play? Will it play? Especially with conservative elements of the party. And will this unity hold up for the convention and beyond? The 2 candidates, Dukakis and Jackson, met this morning. They shook hands and then came out smiling with Lloyd Benson. And there are still those differences on party platform planks, and there still could be some flare-ups along the way. All of that's going on backstage. Up front on the podium tonight, the Democrats have chosen the woman in charge of the Texas State Billions, Texas State Treasurer Ann Richards, to set the stage as keynote speaker of this convention and to underscore the importance Democrats attach to winning the South, something being stressed repeatedly in the choice of the ticket, Dukakis and Texan Lloyd Benson, and the very site of this convention here in Atlanta. CBS News has an experienced team of veteran correspondents here to sort out the substance from the hip, the hype, and the hoopla. First and foremost, among the men and women who've been covering these conventions since television began to cover them, 2 masters of their craft and legends of broadcast journalism, Walter Cronkite and Eric Severlad. Also, the unique perspective of the gifted correspondent Charles Scarroll. Covering at the podium, helping us out from 60 Minutes, Diane Sawyer. And out among the multitudes of delegates, our own 4 on the floor, the 60-minute man Ed Bradley, Leslie Stahl, Bill Plant, and Bob Schieffer. Now, a few moments ago, I talked with Governor Michael Dukakis at his headquarters hotel suite. Governor, thanks for being with us. Congratulations on what you accomplished today.
Thank you.
But isn't it a case, or is it, that in this meeting of the minds that you now have 3 people running for 2 offices, president and vice president?
No, not at all. Obviously, I hope Senator Benson will be nominated and endorsed as the vice president of the United States by the convention. He's going to be my running mate. We'll be running together. But as I said this morning, this has got to be a team effort, Dan. And we need good people on that team, and Jesse Jackson is one of those good people. He's an important leader. He has inspired literally millions of Americans, registered millions, brought hundreds of thousands of young people into our party and into the political process. So he's an important part of that team. He's going to play an important role. And we look forward to working with him and campaigning with him, and we look forward to winning with him.
Whose message is Jesse Jackson going to be delivering, yours or his?
Well, he's going to be delivering the message of a Democratic Party that's ready for leadership, that understands that this country is ready for change, that building a strong economic future that creates those good jobs for people, and what Lloyd Benson, I think, rightly said this morning was the ultimate civil right, equality of opportunity for all of our people is what this election is all about, what this country is all about, and he'll be campaigning hard for the team, for the ticket, and for our party.
And he'll be delivering your message?
He'll be delivering my message, but he has a great gift of delivery, as you know, almost unique among us these days, and he'll be doing it in a way which I expect and believe will bring literally millions of people into our party, into the political process in a very, very important way.
Governor, with Lloyd Benson, you send one message. Let us describe it as a conservative message. Today, unity with Jesse Jackson, you send another message. Now, if one of your problems, as many reporters believe, is defining yourself, who is Michael Dukakis and what he stands for, haven't you confused that message?
No, because I'm somebody, Dan, who's been a chief executive now for 10 years. I've got a record. I think people, as they get to know me, will know what that record is. And if you talk to the people that I represent in my own state, they'll tell you that there's nothing fuzzy about Mike Dukakis. It's a strong record. It's a progressive record. It's a record that combines progressive values with a sense of fiscal responsibility. And believe me, we need some fiscal responsibility in the White House beginning in January of 1989. I think that's what the American people are looking for. That's what I stand for. I think it's what Lloyd Bentsen stands for. It's what the Democratic Party stands for. And I think that's why we have the best opportunity for victory that we've had in many, many years.
Governor, I know you have to go. We want to go. Can you confirm for us that there'll be a vote on the platform on taxes, no first use of nuclear weapons, and that's all?
I can't confirm any of those things, Dan. I know that there are discussions going on. We may have some debate, and there's nothing wrong with some healthy debate over the platform, but at this point I can't tell you exactly what those planks will be and what we will be debating.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you.
Now, while Governor Dukakis himself isn't in the convention hall tonight, his wife, Katie Dukakis, arrived a short while ago, and our correspondent Diane Sawyer caught up with her.
Mrs. Dukakis, good evening and welcome to the hall. Can we ask, what did the governor say to you first after his meeting with Jesse Jackson? What was his headline?
I don't remember exactly, Diane, but he was very, very pleased, and it's been a great day today.
Are you relieved?
I'm relieved and I'm not surprised. I'm delighted that everybody's coming together and we're all going to be on the same team.
Katie Dukakis, just a short while ago. This convention marks the first time since 1860 that the Democratic Party has held a convention in the Deep South. Now, that's if you don't consider Miami Beach, where the Republicans held their convention in 1972, part of the Deep South. In just a moment, Walter Cronkite, so stay here with us. Joining us now in our CBS News anchor booth here at the Democratic National Convention, and a pleasure to have him, Walter Cronkite. Walter, good evening. Yeah. Walter, there's been a lot of talk today about this show of unity, real or imagined, between Dukakis, Bentsen, and Jackson. This is by no means unprecedented.
No, the whole thing, the vigorous debate before the convention even opens, and then a meeting of minds either before or after the fight, whatever time, and a compromise of some kind worked out. There have been a couple of famous ones, as a matter of fact, and it bears repeating as a parallel because it's very close to what happened here. Liberals and conservatives, or the more militant of each side, not being able to get together. And it goes back to 1952 when the great General Dwight Eisenhower and Senator Robert A. Taft, Mr. Republican, fought bitterly at the '52 convention before Eisenhower won out and got the nomination. And a rather unhappy Mr. Taft called on him at his residence as the president of Columbia University at Morningside Heights. And they worked out quite a compromise, quite a detailed one, in which Eisenhower would accept certain of the issues that Taft felt strongly about as leader of the conservative party. And Taft agreed to campaign and vigorously in 15 states. They even named 15 states. It was called, however, by the unhappy fringe, conservative and liberal of the Republican Party, it was called derisively the surrender of Morningside Heights. And then in 1952, Nixon, in order to assure himself the nomination, felt he had to get Nelson Rockefeller, the leader of the liberal wing of the party, on his side, and he had a meeting in an apartment on Fifth Avenue, and they worked out details of issues and how they would work this thing out together, very much like today, denying that anybody made any major concessions and all of that. And then they came up with the compact of Fifth Avenue.
Chances of this one of holding together, succeeding?
Well, I don't know. I think that we'll have to see that one played out. The fringes of on both sides of this thing are not going to like it, obviously, and they'll probably end up calling the darn thing the accommodation of Atlanta.
Walter, let's go down to the floor now for the singing of the Star-Spangled Banner, which will be sung by Garrison Keillor, former host of the popular radio program The Prairie Home Companion.
People's King.
Well, night one of the Democratic Convention underway. Mrs. Dukakis in the hall with members of the family. The governor staying back in his hotel suite, as we heard from Mrs. Dukakis. That is his plan for the evening. She'll be here, he'll be back in the hotel suite. Now, what's going to happen next here at the convention is that Congressman Mike Espy, the first black to be elected a United States congressman from Mississippi since Reconstruction immediately after the Civil War, is going to introduce tonight's keynote speaker, Ann Richards, the state treasurer from Texas. At 34, Espy is the youngest Democratic House member in the 100th Congress. He gained popularity through his family background, the background of his grandfather, a man who was known far and wide around his hometown, T.J. Huddleston Sr., because Mr. Huddleston Sr. built a hospital, the first hospital operated for and run by black Mississippians in Yazoo City, by asking every black in the state to contribute $1. Now that's the background of Congressman Mike Espy, who will be introducing tonight's keynote speaker. Charles Garalt has more about this extraordinary man. Charles? Well, we had a little audio trouble there with Charles Garalt, and we'll get back to him in just a few moments. Perhaps you heard a little earlier in our broadcast, while Governor Michael Dukakis was in his usual careful, cautious way, not the one to confirm it, CBS News has been told by various members in both camps, that is the Jackson camp and the Dukakis camp, that the plan on the platform planks, about which there's been a lot of talk, you can say, and it's true. Nobody pays much attention to the platforms of these things, and why should they? For one thing, they're a very turgid reading. This one is more than 3,000 words, and that's considered short as platforms go. But tomorrow night, when they get to the platform, there's supposed to be a debate and a vote on the question of will there be any promise, absolute promise of no nuclear first use by the United States, on the question of taxes, debate on the Palestinian homeland question, but probably no vote. That's the rough outline of the plan as it now stands. And we'll be back with more of our CBS News coverage from this year's Democratic National Convention after these messages.
CBS News coverage of Campaign 88 continues. Tonight from Atlanta, Georgia, the opening session of the Democratic National Convention. From CBS News Convention headquarters, inside the Omni Arena, here again is Dan Rather.
Congressman Espy of Mississippi, the man we told you about, whose grandfather started that hospital in Mississippi and about whom Charles Peralta prepared such a beautiful piece, but we can't get Charles's audio up now, is just concluding his introduction of tonight's keynote speaker and more about Ann Richards, the woman who is to keynote for the Democrats tonight, from Diane Sawyer on the podium. Diane?
Well, Dan, the Democrats thought that they wanted a keynote speaker who was a pistol-packing kind of speaker, one who could aim right at what they see as Vice President George Bush's vulnerabilities. So they got themselves a Texan, got themselves somebody with a folksy style, and got themselves a woman who can, in their words, and to paraphrase the Vice President, kick a little gender gap.
Ann Richards has got a wicked wit and a brash political style that Texans seem to love, which may be why, in 1982, she became the first woman to win statewide office in 50 years. She was elected state treasurer and is now in her second term. She's a tough former county commissioner and a die-hard member of the liberal wing of the Texas Party. She's also a mother of 4 children, divorced, and has won respect for her public acknowledgement that she's a recovered alcoholic.
How are y'all? Good to see you.
And tonight, Ann Richards has more riding on this speech than just getting good reviews. In a sense, she's campaigning too, since she's certain to run for governor of Texas in 1990, or perhaps Lloyd Benson's Senate seat if he becomes vice president.
And one more thing, Dan. You have to say that Ann Richards won the sympathy of every computer klutz in the audience tonight, because she fed the first draft of her speech into a computer, she says, and it ate the thing, and she had to start all over again.
Thank you, Diane. And Ann Richards comes out of the yarn-spinning tradition of the southwestern part of the United States. Those of you who know that area of the country know that yarn-spinning, telling tales, poking fun at oneself is very much part of the tradition, and too often is thought of as well a tradition that men do those things. That Ann Richards will show you that not only do women do them, but do them very well indeed. She's right out of that tradition. The origins of the keynote speech, by the way, you know, over the years, Walter Cronkite, Eric Sevareid, everybody's talked about the keynote speech at these conventions. The keynote, if you look up in your dictionary, which we try to do here, it'll say the first and harmonically fundamental tone of a scale, the central fact, idea, or mood. Now, the keynote address plays an important role here because it's part of the overall frame. It's around which the party wants you to think of this convention. It's part of the defining moment of this convention. Bob Schieffer is down in the Texas delegation. Bob?
Well, good evening, Dan. There are a whole bunch of Texas politicians down here getting ready to listen to Ann Richards. I'm going to try to get over and see if we can get to a couple of them. State Chairman Bob Slagle, what does this sort of thing mean to the state of Texas?
Well, it's very pleasing having so many Texas officials recognized in so many ways at a Democratic National Convention and letting them play out on a national stage. We're very proud of Ann. She's a wonderful office holder, and she's an excellent speaker. Of course, Senator Benson, Jim Wright, Jim Hightower, Martin Frost, Leonard Guerrero. I mean,
what does it mean to have Lloyd Benson on this ticket? What is the difference in the situation there before Lloyd Benson and now that he's on the ticket?
Well, Benson cost Bush, by every poll we've ever seen, Benson cost Bush anywhere from 3 to 5 points just right off the top. And he adds points to the caucus. So now, in Texas, we're either ahead or we're dead even, and I really think we're ahead. And I think as it sinks in more, that a person who some people suspect of being perhaps too liberal from the Northeast picked a Texas conservative Democrat, that he was making a political statement that as president he was going to have a moderate administration. And you're from Texas, you know that that's moderation is okay. So I think it's an excellent statement. And I've talked to a tremendous number of Southern chairmen who are just thrilled to death. They're enthused. They feel like it gave them a real opportunity.
Standing right next to you here is John Sharp, who is the campaign manager in the state for Michael Dukakis. You're suddenly a very popular fellow down there, aren't you?
Well, I don't know about popular. It seemed maybe a little smarter than a while ago, but I think that things have turned out well in Texas so far.
Do you think Bush will have to spend a lot more time in Texas now than he did before?
I think he's going to have to spend a lot more time in Texas to have a chance of carrying it. I think what Benson has done by coming on the ticket has brought it even already. But what you're not seeing in the polls is Benson's phenomenal organization begin to work, and that's going to start happening over the next few weeks and months. And when that goes in, I disagree with people that think Texas is going to be close. I think there's going to be a wider margin than people think, because Benson has a much better organization than anyone, and especially better than Bush.
Now, is there anybody in the state of Texas who's not going to run for Benson's Senate seat if Dukakis is elected?
Slagle and I probably, I guess.
I guess the last time we had an open seat like this was when Lyndon Johnson was elected vice president. And what did you have? 73 people on the ticket.
There wasn't a runoff then. It's going to be a runoff this time.
Well, here's your lady right now.
Raise the filing fees a lot.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Ann Richards, the state treasurer of Texas, having been introduced now, receives her welcome. She is the focal point. She is the center of the plan for tonight of the Democrats, saying to you, the voter, we want you to know exactly what our party stands, what we stand for. This woman is going to help define us as we see ourselves. So let's pick up a little of the flavor on the floor now.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Buenas noches, mis amigos.
Yeah.
I'm delighted to be here with you this evening because after listening to George Bush all these years, I figured you needed to know what a real Texas accent sounds like.
Why don't we find Ed Bradley down in one
12
of those
years
southern
ago,
delegations?
Barbara Jordan, another Texas woman, Barbara made the keynote address to this convention, and 2 women in 160 years is about par for the course. But if you give us a chance, we can perform. After all, Ginger Rogers did everything that Fred Astaire did. She just did it backwards and in high heels. I want to announce to this nation that in a little more than 100 days, the Reagan, Meese, Deaver, Knopfziger, Poindexter, North, Weinberger, Watt, Gorsuch, Lavelle, Stockman, Haig, Bork, Noriega, George Bush will be over. tonight I feel a little like I did when I played basketball in the 8th grade. I thought I looked real cute in my uniform. And then I heard a boy yell from the bleachers, "Make that basket, bird legs." And my greatest fear is that same guy is somewhere out there in the audience tonight, and he's gonna cut me down to size. Because where I grew up, there really wasn't much tolerance for self-importance, people who put on airs. I was born during the Depression in a little community just outside Waco, and I grew up listening to Franklin Roosevelt on the radio. Well, it was back then that I came to understand the small truths and the hardships that bind neighbors together. Those were real people with real problems, and they had real dreams about getting out of the Depression. I can remember summer nights when we'd put down what we called a Baptist pallet, and we listened to the grown-ups talk. I can still hear the sound of the dominoes clicking on the marble slab my daddy had found for a tabletop. I can still hear the laughter of the men telling jokes you weren't supposed to hear, talking about how big that old buck deer was, laughing about Mama putting Clorox in the well when the frog fell in. They talked about war and Washington and what this country needed. They talked straight talk, and it came from people who were living their lives as best they could. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to tell how the cow ate the cabbage. I got a letter last week from a young mother in Lorena, Texas, and I want to read part of it to you. She writes, "Our worries go from payday to payday, just like millions of others. And we have two fairly decent incomes, but I worry how I'm going to pay the rising car insurance and food. I pray my kids don't have a growth spurt from August to December so I don't have to buy new jeans. We buy clothes at the budget stores and we have them fray and fade and stretch in the first wash. We ponder and try to figure out how we're going to pay for college and braces and tennis shoes. We don't take vacations and we don't go out to eat. Please don't think me ungrateful. We have jobs and a nice place to live, and we're healthy. We're the people you see every day in the grocery stores. We obey the laws, we pay our taxes, we fly our flags on holidays, and we plod along trying to make it better for ourselves and our children and our parents. We aren't vocal anymore. I think maybe we're too tired. I believe that people like us are forgotten in America." Well, of course you believe you're forgotten, because you have been. This Republican administration treats us as if we were pieces of a puzzle that can't fit together. They've tried to put us into compartments and separate us from each other. Their political theory is divide and conquer. They've suggested time and time again that what is of interest to one group of Americans is not of interest to anyone else. We've been isolated. We've been lumped into that sad phraseology called special interests. They've told farmers that they were selfish, that they would drive up food prices if they asked the government to intervene on behalf of the family farm, and we watched farms go on the auction block while we bought food from foreign countries. Well, that's wrong. They told working mothers it's all their fault that families are falling apart because they had to go to work to keep their kids in jeans and tennis shoes in college, and they're wrong. They told American labor they were trying to ruin free enterprise by asking for 60 days notice of plant closings, and that's wrong. And they told the auto industry and the steel industry and the timber industry and the oil industry, companies being threatened by foreign products flooding this country, that you're protectionist if you think the government should enforce our trade laws, and that is wrong. When they belittle us for demanding clean air and clean water, for trying to save the oceans and the ozone layer, that's wrong. No wonder we feel isolated and confused. We want answers, and their answer is that something is wrong with you. Well, nothing's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with you that you can't fix in November. We've been told that the interests of the South and the Southwest are not the same interests as the North and the Northeast. They pit one group against the other. They've divided this country. And in our isolation, we think government isn't going to help us. And we're alone in our feelings. We feel forgotten. Well, the fact is that we are not an isolated piece of their puzzle. We are one nation. We are the United States of America. Now, we Democrats believe that America is still the country of fair play, that we can come out of a small town or a poor neighborhood and have the same chance as anyone else, and it doesn't matter whether we are black or Hispanic or disabled or women. We believe that America is a country where small business owners must succeed because they are the bedrock, backbone of our economy. We believe that our kids deserve good daycare and public schools. We believe our kids deserve public schools where students can learn and teachers can teach. And we want to believe that our parents will have a good retirement, and that we will too. We Democrats believe that Social Security is a pact that cannot be broken. We want to believe that we can live out our lives without the terrible fear that an illness is going to bankrupt us and our children. We Democrats believe that America can overcome any problem, including the dreaded disease called AIDS. We believe that America is still a country where there is more to life than just a constant struggle for money. And we believe that America must have leaders who show us that our struggles amount to something and contribute to something larger, leaders who want us to be all that we can be. We want leaders like Jesse Jackson. Jesse Jackson is a leader and a teacher who can open our hearts and open our minds and stir our very souls. And he has taught us that we are as good as our capacity for caring about the drug problem, caring about crime, caring about education, and caring about each other. Now, in contrast, the greatest nation of the free world has had a leader for 8 straight years that has pretended that he cannot hear our questions over the noise of the helicopters. And we know he doesn't want to answer, but we have a lot of questions. And when we get our questions asked, or there is a leak or an investigation, the only answer we get is, I don't know, or I forgot. But you wouldn't accept that answer from your children. I wouldn't. Don't tell me you don't know or you forgot. We're not going to have the America that we want until we elect leaders who are going to tell the truth. Not most days, but every day. don't forget what they don't want to remember. And for 8 straight years, George Bush hasn't displayed the slightest interest in anything we care about. And now that he's after a job that he can't get appointed to, he's like Columbus discovering America. He's found childcare. He's found education. Poor George. He can't help it. He was born with a silver foot in his mouth. Well, no wonder. No wonder we can't figure it out. Because the leadership of this nation is telling us one thing on TV and doing something entirely different. They tell us that they're fighting a war against terrorists. And then we find out that the White House is selling arms to the Ayatollah. They tell us that they're fighting a war on drugs. And then people come on TV and testify that the CIA and the DEA and the FBI knew they were flying drugs into America all along. And they're negotiating with a dictator who is shoveling cocaine into this country like crazy. I guess that's their Central American strategy. Now, they tell us that employment rates are great and that they're for equal opportunity. But we know it takes 2 paychecks to make ends meet today when it used to take 1. And the opportunity they're so proud of is low-wage, dead-end jobs. And there is no major city in America where you cannot see homeless men sitting in parking lots holding signs that say, "I will work for food." Now, my friends, we really are at a crucial point in American history. Under this administration, we have devoted our resources into making this country a military colossus. But we've let our economic lines of defense fall into disrepair. The debt of this nation is greater than it has ever been in our history. We fought a world war on less debt than the Republicans have built up in the last 8 years. You know, it's kind of like that brother-in-law who drives a flashy new car, but he's always borrowing money from you to make the payments. Well, but let's take what they're proudest of. That is their stand on defense. We Democrats are committed to a strong America, and quite frankly, when our leaders say to us, we need a new weapons system, our inclination is to say, well, they must be right. But when we pay billions for planes that won't fly, billions for tanks that won't fire, and billions for systems that won't work, that old dog won't hunt. And you don't have to be from Waco to know that when the Pentagon makes crooks rich and doesn't make America strong, that it's a bum deal. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm really glad that our young people missed the Depression and missed the great big war. But I do regret that they missed the leaders that I knew, leaders who told us when things were tough and that we'd have to sacrifice and that these difficulties might last for a while. They didn't tell us things were hard for us because we were different or isolated or special interests. They brought us together and they gave us a sense of national purpose. They gave us Social Security, and they told us they were setting up a system where we could pay our own money in, and when the time came for our retirement, we could take the money out. People in the rural areas were told that we deserved to have electric lights, and they were going to harness the energy that was necessary to give us electricity so my grandmama didn't have to carry that old coal oil lamp around. And they told us that they were going to guarantee when we put our money in the bank that the money was going to be there and it was going to be insured. They did not lie to us. And I think one of the saving graces of Democrats is that we are candid. We talk straight talk. We tell people what we think. And that tradition and those values live today in Michael Dukakis from Massachusetts. Michael Dukakis knows that this country is on the edge of a great new era, that we're not afraid of change, that we're for thoughtful, truthful, strong leadership. Behind his calm, there's an impatience to unify this country and to get on with the future. His instincts are deeply American. They're tough, and they're generous. And personally, I have to tell you that I have never met a man who had a more remarkable sense about what is really important in life. And then there's my friend and my teacher for many years, Senator Lloyd Bentsen. And I couldn't be prouder, both as a Texan and as a Democrat, because Lloyd Bentsen understands America. From the barrio to the boardroom, he knows how to bring us together by regions, by economics, and by example. And he's already beaten George Bush once. So when it comes right down to it, this election is a contest between those who are satisfied with what they have and those who know we can do better. That's what this election is really all about. It's about the American dream, those who want to keep it for the few, and those who know it must be nurtured and passed along. I'm a grandmother now, and I have one nearly perfect granddaughter named Lily. And when I hold that grandbaby, I feel the continuity of life that unites us, that binds generation to generation, that ties us with each other. And sometimes I spread that Baptist pallet out on the floor, and Lily and I roll a ball back and forth. And I think of all the families like mine, like the one in Lorena, Texas, like the ones that nurture children all across America. And as I look at Lily, I know that it is within families that we learn both the need to respect individual human dignity and to work together for our common good within our families, within our nation. It is the same. And as I sit there, I wonder if she'll ever grasp the changes I've seen in my life, if she'll ever believe that there was a time when blacks could not drink from public water fountains, when Hispanic children were punished for speaking Spanish in the public schools, and women couldn't vote. I think of all the political fights I've fought and all the compromises I've had to accept as part payment. And I think of all the small victories that have added up to national triumphs, and all the things that would never have happened, and all the people who would have been left behind if we had not reasoned and fought and won those battles together. And I will tell Lily that those triumphs were Democratic Party triumphs. I want so much to tell Lily how far we've come, you and I. And as the ball rolls back and forth, I want to tell her how very lucky she is. That for all of our difference, we are still the greatest nation on this good earth. And our strength lies in the men and women who go to work every day, who struggle to balance their family and their jobs, and who should never, ever be forgotten. I just hope that, like her grandparents and her great-grandparents before, that Lily goes on to raise her kids with the promise that echoes in homes all across America, that we can do better, and that's what this election is all about. Thank you very much.